Welcome, data people. We are Zuma. My name is Matt, and this is the Data for Good podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Zuma. Zuma is a dedicated recruitment company focusing on data positions across Berlin. The Data for Good podcast is for the world of data science, analytics, and engineering, giving you a platform to hear the thoughts and opinions of data leaders from Berlin and beyond. Today, we are joined by Michael Kieweg, VP of Data at McMakler. Michael, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Matt. I'm fine. How about you?
Very, very well, thank you. It's great to have you on. But for those who might not know who you are or what you've been doing, can you give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Michael. From my background, I'm a mathematician, so I studied math and did a PhD in math quite a while ago. And after that, I left academia and went to business. And I've always worked in machine learning on machine learning related topics. At the beginning, a lot of computer vision, then also on NLP, for example. And 2019, I started at McMakler as leading the data science team.
Mm-hmm.
And since 2022, I also lead the data engineering and analytics engineering team here at McMakler. So like all the whole data team, so to say.
Absolutely, and we're gonna tap into some of that wisdom today. We are here to talk about leveraging data and how we do that within the real estate industry. So, yeah, to start very, very simply, when we talk about the real estate industry and data, what do we mean? And yeah, McMakler in particular, how has that all come together?
Yeah, so McMakler is from the business, it's a classical real estate broker. So that means we support people who want to sell a property, and of course, also on the other side, people who want to buy a property. And yeah, therefore, every data related to real estate is interesting for us. Also a big topic on which we work in the data team is marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So that means we also utilize a lot of data from Google Analytics, for example, from Google Ads, a lot of data. Since we also have many customers, we naturally also have a lot of customer data from about properties, about customer themselves, and also, of course, we are utilizing a lot of external data about properties, also socioeconomic data, for example. This is all data we utilize and we use to support the business at McMakler.
Obviously, the property market affects us all, and we're all got an interest in that, especially property valuation. I'm sure that everyone is super interested. Where do we start with that? How do we use data in particular in your teams?
Yeah, this is really a very, very interesting topic, and maybe also the most important one when you want to sell a property, because of course you want to get the most money for it typically.
Yeah.
So that's also a very important question for our customer. And we, especially in data science team, we work a lot on automatic property valuation, which is a very, very challenging problem, and maybe also one of the biggest machine learning problems I've worked in my whole time. It's also so challenging because every property is unique.
Yeah.
So there's not the same property in Germany. Plus, we have the location is maybe the most important factor for the value of a property, which is also hard to model. Yeah, of course, there are very strong price differences between a big city like Berlin or Munich and the countryside. But even within a big city, there might be very big differences, which are very hard to model. So, for example, if you have a house at the river, the apartment facing the river has a higher value than the one facing the other side, and
Mm-hmm.
all of this has a big impact on the property valuation, which makes it very challenging, but also very interesting. For the valuation, we need a lot of data for training such a model because it's so complex. And yeah, we have our data, of course, for properties which we sold, where we know what the selling price was.
Mm-hmm.
One can also see what our properties are published on Immobilien Scout, for example, which is one of the market leaders. But there also the challenge is this is just an offer price. One never knows whether a property really gets sold for this price. Yeah, there's no official database where you can get the selling prices from in Germany. And that also raises the question, what is actually the market value of a property? Yeah, is it what would be the definition, or probably the maximum price for which you can still sell it, or something like this? One could define it like this, but there's also not a unique definition of the market value, so to say. Just a rough estimate typically.
Can you use your proprietary data to kind of estimate and predict what the sale prices are of the accommodation or the real estate that you haven't sold and can only see the offer prices?
Exactly. That's like our goal of the machine learning model. Yeah, to predict the prices, like if a new customer comes to us, and to estimate what will most likely be the selling price, and also with which price would we like to go to the market, like what should be the initial offer price. This is something for which we use machine learning. As usual, there's always the saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So there's also often a lot of noise in the information we get about properties. Partly, sometimes customers don't exactly know how big their property is, for example. So there is some or some noise on the input already. Then also there are features about a property which are subjective, kind of like what is the interior quality, what is the state of the building itself. This is also a little bit subjective, which also makes it more challenging. And especially the last 1.5 years have been very challenging concerning the property valuation. Because the market changed, the interest rate increased a lot lately, which also changed the selling prices a lot. So the selling price dropped recently, and this is also very hard to model for a machine learning model. And so far, we only focus on estimating the current market value of a property. Like, we are not making any forecasting, like in 5 years or in 10 years, we think that the value will be like this. Also a very interesting topic, definitely, but so far we haven't touched that one.
Do you think that could be a danger of self-fulfilling prophecy, or if you thinking more of investors, if you tell an investor this property will be worth this much in this many years, then everyone will flood to that area, which would decrease the value? Is that kind of the thinking behind?
Good question. Partly maybe yes, because if everyone, like probably not only one source, but if several sources tell, oh, the prices will increase in this area, then people start buying in this area, and then it will happen. So it could happen, but I think also that's like in the past, there were like decent estimations of the development, which didn't cause like a bubble or something like this. Yeah. Even though now the prices drop again, I wouldn't call this a bubble. It's not like they fall down extremely, and probably, as it looks like, the prices will also kind of stabilize now, and then at least next year will slightly increase again. That's my guess, but of course that's just a rough estimation.
So with this data, with these ML models of price estimations of what the property will be now, what are we aiming for, and who is it creating the most value for?
So we kind of utilize this automatic property valuation at two places at McMakler. So the first one is after customers come to our webpage and create like a lead, which means they have a first interest in maybe selling with McMakler. They provide a few data points about the property, very basic data points, which is like where's the location, not even the exact location, only the postal code. Is it a house or apartment? How big is the apartment? And so 2-3 more basic information. And using this data, we provide a first, this is fully automatic, we provide a range of the value of the property. At this point in time, we are only able to provide a range because we have, first of all, limited information about the property. Plus, there's always this noise that some customers might not know some things exactly. Maybe the plot size, for example, if they own a house, could be a little bit off. Therefore, we only provide a range here at this stage. And so that's like the first application where the customer gets like a first, estimation before even meeting one of our brokers in person. And a second step where we utilize this is after there was a meeting between the customer and one of our brokers, where the broker gathered more information about the property. We then try to determine an offer price, that's really a point estimation then, where we say this would be a decent offer price. However, at the moment, this is like a semi-automatic process. So we have the dedicated team, which is responsible for property valuation. They utilize our input, but they still do some other manual processes and combine these to a final estimation from them. Main reason, for example, for such things is also that, for example, this micro location is very hard to model for us. Like the example was facing the river or the other side. This is so far something we couldn't really teach the machine because we don't have this data also in our training data.
I was just going to say, what are the biggest challenges? You mentioned a couple there. With such broad data to come up with the best estimation you can, what are the biggest challenges, and what are you doing to overcome them?
So I would say the biggest challenges are partly the lack of data. That for some locations, especially like smaller villages, we might not have that much training examples, and then it's hard to estimate the value of this property of a property in this area. That's definitely a big challenge. The noise we have, like we often don't have the exact selling price, for example. And the third one I would say is also the noise in the data a little bit. That sometimes we have some wrong features about property, and that makes it also challenging.
And how is that different to the data you receive and once the broker has been involved and it's been a lot more thorough?
If often I would say a broker is a bit more subjective maybe when it comes to data acquisition, especially when you speak about what's the quality of the property. We sometimes, maybe customers tend to more overestimate the quality than a broker.
Yeah.
For them, it's still maybe okay, while a broker would say not so good quality, and therefore it's a little bit more objective, the data, I would say.
Yeah. How do you overcome that? How do you kind of use the data to educate and persuade people? Because when selling a house, you might think you're the expert, and I've spent a lot of time on this house, it's quality, but the data suggests other side. Otherwise, how do you navigate that?
I mean, at this point, it's this is really the broker who does. I cannot say that much actually about this, because this is mainly done by brokers.
Right.
They have a valuation which was also impacted by our machine learning model, but it's not like our machine learning model has to persuade the customers. However, what we have, what we also use is a method called the Shapley values, which also justify the price. So at the end, our machine learning model does not only say the price per square meter is 5,000 euros, but it can also say the price per square meter is 5,000 euros. In average, the price per square meter in this area is 6,000 euros. But because of this feature, and this feature of the property, we think it's 1,000 euros less.
Right. Okay.
It could specifically say because the interior quality is bad, maybe 400 euros less, because it doesn't have an elevator, 200 euros less, and so on.
Because with a lot of data teams, the stakeholders are internal, and the data is a product, and educating internal stakeholders. This data is going all the way through to the consumer. So does that create another challenge, it sounds?
Definitely. So especially concerning this first application, which I told you, where we send a range to the customer. This is fully automatic. So this is also not checked by any human. This gets sent to the customer. And it's sometimes off, of course. So sometimes it's off because the machine learning is not perfect. Sometimes it just simply does a bad estimation. Sometimes it can also be off because the customer provided some wrong input and maybe is not even aware about this mistake. So that's definitely a challenge. I think important is then also the communication, to say this is just a range. So when we send this range to the customer, this is within an email. We also say this is just a rough estimation. We will, if we gather more information, we will make it more precise. So I think here it's important to communicate it well, that this is not a final price or anything.
Right. So that's how your data and the machine learning models are used externally. Internally, there's a lot more focus on marketing and how you can get a lot of value out of these models. Tell us a little bit about the internal use of machine learning at McMakler.
So in general, we have a lot of cooperation with the marketing department. Also, I think very diverse and interesting topics. One thing where we worked a lot on is the analysis of TV advertisements. So we are still doing a lot of TV advertisement at McMakler, also because typically sometimes younger people say, why do you still make advertisement on TV? But our TV advertisement is mainly focused towards people who want to sell their property. And typically these are not people around 20, these are older people who in average like 30, 40 or older, and they still watch quite a lot of TV. So TV is a good way also to reach people and that people get to know the brand McMakler.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, it's very, very challenging to analyze. Yeah. If you have an advertisement on Facebook, you can see how many people clicked on it, what's the conversion rate. You have a direct connection between the advertisement and the visit on your web page. But for TV, this is very hard.
Yeah.
And therefore, we also developed some methods to analyze the impact of TV,
mm-hmm.
which we roughly, to explain it, the rough idea is like we look at the traffic on our web page before the spot.
Yeah.
And then we look at the traffic 10 minutes after the spot was aired. And then we compare the uplift here. And that
mm-hmm.
can be a measure for the impact of a TV advertisement. While this works very well for a big channel, like on the big German TV channels where you have a big cross reach, you can see quite an uplift here. However, this doesn't work for small channels,
right?
Because there you don't really see that much. It's very noisy. So there it becomes way more challenging to analyze those short TV or smaller TV channels. Plus, it can also be, especially at the early times of McMakler, we really invested a lot in TV advertisement.
Mm-hmm.
And then a challenge is if 2 TV spots are aired simultaneously on 2 different channels.
Yeah.
Then of course there's also an overlap in the traffic they create, and then it's also might be very challenging to separate this what comes from channel 1 and what comes from channel 2. But definitely very interesting topic. Another thing is where we apply machine learning is in forecasting. And expected revenue prediction. So we want
mm-hmm.
to estimate the efficiency of campaigns where we have some machine learning models.
Right.
And this is very challenging at McMakler because we have a super long customer journey. So if you sell, for example, something on like products on the internet, you typically immediately see someone comes to the web page, they order, you sell it, you have your revenue.
Yeah.
But as a broker, you only create revenue if the property was really sold at the end, which typically takes at least 3 to 4 months, but it can even take 2 years until you sell a property.
Yeah.
And therefore, this is very hard to stay at an early stage of a campaign, of a marketing campaign, to see how efficient this is. And therefore, we developed some models to estimate the performance of those campaigns, such that marketing can optimize their marketing expenses early and not such that they don't have to wait for 2 years until they know the outcome.
It's a lot of the companies that we speak to, like you say, are very immediate in their impact of marketing campaigns. It's such a long sales cycle. How does that affect your ability to move quickly, innovate, change things, rather than being patient and seeing them out?
This is definitely a challenge we face here. Like one way to overcome this is exactly what I said, to estimate the value of a campaign before it really created the revenue. However, this is always a bit noisy, of course. One can never do this 100% precise. That makes it very challenging. Further on, which is also a challenge in marketing, is that the marketing campaigns or different marketing channels also impact each other. So, for example, if you carry a lot of TV spots, but you don't invest anything in Google Ads, that wouldn't get along with each other, because people might Google your company afterwards. But if you're not in the search results, then it wouldn't really help. Therefore, also it's important to distribute the budget accordingly over the different marketing channels. This is also something where in the data science team we try to optimize and also measure the interaction between those marketing channels and find a good distribution among them.
So the importance of data-driven decision-making, that's why we're all here in data. How are you getting your value across on such long sales cycles and across different areas? Talk to us about that.
So I didn't fully understand the question.
So a lot of companies with data teams, they are trying to prove their value, and that's usually on quite short sales cycles, with the longer ones with a lot more patience required. How do you overcome that?
I mean, it's part of the business, so we have to wait until we get the revenue. This is part of it. Specifically, when we estimate, for example, the value of a campaign, of a new campaign, and we don't want to wait a year until we know the outcome of it. We can look at the leads this campaign created and compare it with similar leads from the past and see how well they converted or to how much revenue they created. So, for example, a feature which impacts a lot the revenue we expect from a customer is, first of all, the value of the property. So if a customer is from Munich, this is an expensive area. This might probably have a higher revenue if it converts, of course, but the expected revenue is already higher than an apartment on the countryside.
Right.
Plus, also customers give us information about, first of all, whether they want to sell at all, also how quick they want to sell, like what's their reason for sale also, and this all impacts whether this will convert at the end to a sale or not, and then also how much revenue we make out of a customer or a potential customer in this case.
With such a long process, how much of this can we automate with the developments in AI and so many different moving parts? How much of a consideration is this in the real estate industry?
So in general, automatization is a very important task. There in the real estate property area, there are still manual things one has to do. So, for example, one has to write an expose about the property. One has to acquire images. One has to put all of this together to a nice advertisement. One has to find potential buyers and schedule appointments with these buyers, and there's a lot of manual work included here in the whole process. And in general, the automatization is very important for the business. Like, for example, doesn't even have to be AI, but just setting up something which is like automatic or a tool where customers can automatically book an appointment for a viewing, for example. I still think one has to also offer like the traditional way via phone, because some customers simply want that. But more and more this will get automated. I think in general, using chatbots, for example, probably has also big potential here to automatize here a lot from appointment booking over, I have some questions about the property. Can you answer me these questions?
Yeah.
I think there is, still a lot of potential where, I'm also looking forward, as there are, I think, many interesting projects one can do here.
I'm conscious of time, so we're going to round it up with this because I think it's a fascinating area. Do you think we will reach a point maybe in the real estate industry where we are purchasing things in a similar way to how we're purchasing other products? Like we see cars have pretty much gone digital now. Are we on that path in the real estate industry to do something similar?
Very good question. I think many people still want to physically be in the apartment or in the house before they buy it. So partly, I think it will always be on-site appointments. But we already see it that, for example, maybe an investor doesn't have to be inside the apartment, because it's not about how well he feels in the apartment. It's simply, does he think this is a good investment? Is everything okay with the quality of the apartment? And if that's fine, maybe he or she will buy it. So I think there will be a lot of changes in the future, that more and more stuff gets here digital and automatic. Still, the process of buying itself at the moment, it's very regulated. You have to have a notary appointment where you have this really on real paper to sign the contract. So this is then also like the law even has to change here when this should get fully digital. This probably will still need a lot of time before we can do this with, I don't know, blockchain or whatever. This definitely needs some time. But in general, it will be more and more digital in the future.
But with this, we will need a lot more data and a lot more data to be processed. How far off, other than the regulatory side, how much more data will we need to get to that kind of stage?
I'm not sure if it's even a lack of data problem here. I think it's mainly about regulations, partly, for example, when it comes to contract, or also maybe acceptance of people. Do I really have to go to the property, or is it okay if there's a camera or even a drone maybe flying through it, and you can use it, steer it from your laptop or whatever. Theoretically, that's all possible. So I think it's also a question of acceptance, maybe more than data even.
So as data, where we can do it, but we're waiting for the other areas to maybe support it and make it feasible.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, I think we could go into this topic and hypothetically speak about how all this could change in the future, but unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. Thank you very much for your time and your rich insights, Michael.
Thank you too.
It's been a pleasure having you on, and of course, the listeners, don't forget to like and share so we can reach as many people as possible. But it is bye from us. Thanks once again, Michael.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.